Kyle Santa! Merry Christmas, everybody, and welcome back to Kyle is Famous, the game where everybody wins. Start date! I have a couple ideas of stuff we could do. Idea one is, first thing I want to do is I want to give the kids nothing. I didn't do that last time. So we're going to dress up as Santa and gift the kids presents. Kyle walked out into the middle of the road and took a long pondering look around him go on Santa duties. Kyle realized it was wise to conduct his duties as Santa, give presents to children. Kyle could think of nothing better than to gather children around him and give them presents. Kyle supposed it was possible there were children in the nearby park, so he quickly walked over there. Upon arriving, Kyle saw several families happily walking around and playing in the snow. Kyle called for the families to gather around him. The children bounced over expectantly. Kyle presented the children with a gift. Because Kyle had not bothered to actually bring anything to give to the children, he had nothing to give them. "Sorry, kiddos," he said. "You're not getting any presents today." Kyle let it along a meaningful laugh. The children were quite frustrated. With a cry of anguish, one child jumped on Kyle and started beating him with both fists. Then another joined him. Then another. Soon, Kyle was completely covered in violent, angry children. Kyle was mauled by the children and barely escaped with his life. Kyle slid into his apartment. He locked the door and sank to the floor. Kyle remembered that he had an interview with Rachel later, but he decided he didn't feel up to it. Kyle gifted nothing. I love it. After other mild exchange of pleasantries, Kyle and Rachel were prompted to take their places for the broadcast. A moment after seating, the studio lights brightened and the cameras clicked on. "Good evening, everyone," said Kyle, looking at the camera. "Welcome back to Stay Up Late with Kyle." Kyle continued. "I am your host, Santa Claus, and I'm here to bring you Christmas cheer." Kyle put his nose down and looked at Rachel. Said Rachel, not understanding. "It's not something to joke about, Rachel," said Kyle. "I take being Santa very seriously." "And I take you very seriously, Kyle," said Rachel, trying to play along. "I'm not Kyle," said Kyle. "I am Santa Claus." "I'm sorry, Santa," said Rachel. "Do you happen to have your naughty and nice list with you? I want to know where I stand." Kyle realized he had not written his naughty and nice list. Trying to save face, Kyle retaliated. "Well, a real Santa doesn't need a list because he has it all up here." Kyle tapped on his head a few times. Rachel was unconvinced. "Kyle, one of Santa's only defining characteristics is having a naughty and nice list. Don't take it away from him." Kyle began to doubt if he had truly experienced a Christmas miracle or not. Rachel," he said, "I have to be Santa." "Why is that, Kyle?" Rachel looked at him sweetly. "Because earlier today, I birthed thousands of elves from my very flesh," Kyle said. "Here, I'll do it again." Kyle tried to produce more elves from his skin. What Kyle did not know is that he had not produced the elves from a Christmas miracle. In fact, Kyle had been infested by the mother elf, who had laid her eggs in his stomach for incubation. Oh no! Irritated by the commotion, the mother elf burst out of Kyle's mouth, screeching her war cry. Pandemonium ensued as the mother elf aggressively attacked all present. Rachel drew a blunt weapon from her pant leg and started to beat the elf monster senseless. Eventually, the mother elf had taken enough. With a parting screech, she scurried out of the studio to find a new host. Nobody quite knew what to do next, so nobody did anything. Eventually, Kyle addressed the audience. "Everybody," he said, "I don't think I'm Santa Claus." The producer shut the cameras off, and everyone went home. Kyle continued the coming days as normal, but vetted his diet much more carefully. It was the mother elf! Let's try to give the kids presents this time. Kyle twiddled his fingers and sang a Christmas tune under his breath to open the door. The door swung open, letting Kyle through. Get laser Claymore. Expecting a battle, Kyle grabbed the laser Claymore. Kyle could think of nothing better than to gather children around him and give them presents. Kyle supposed it was possible there were children in the nearby park, so he quickly walked over there. Upon arriving, Kyle saw several families happily walking around and playing in the snow. Kyle called for the families to gather around him. The children bounced over expectantly. Laser Claymore! Kyle presented the children with a gift. Kyle produced the laser Claymore and wordlessly handed it to the closest child. The child's eyes got big in excitement, and a wondrous grin crossed across his face. Before anyone could react, the child began swinging wildly with both arms. The children's parents made an attempt to grab the child, but he quickly ran in the opposite direction, still swinging. As the child ran through the park, the Claymore cut through benches, trees, and the ground itself. A path of destruction was formed. The child continued to run at full speed, entering the rest of the city. He reached the side of a building, but did not stop. Through his wild swings, the Claymore cut a hole through the wall. Within minutes, the city was in a panic as a small child systematically crashed in and out of every building he could. The rampage continued as the residents looked on helplessly, accepting this would be the end of their livelihood. Soon, there was no area in the city left unmarred. Destruction was rampant. Traffic was at a standstill. Buildings toppled to the ground. The electricity grid was destroyed. The city was in shambles. Kyle was unsure how to react. He eventually looked at the children's parents. They were giving him a stern and slightly irritated look. He said, kids sure will be kids. Kyle walked away humming softly. The destruction of the city brought about a new wave of apocalypse tourism like nobody had seen before. The city's economy flourished. Kyle's city became a travel hotspot for the rest of the world. The small child ran for office the following week and was elected, becoming the first 7-year-old governor. Kyle gifted a Claymore. Very nice. I know what we're gonna do this time. I saw a thing. We're gonna bring elves outside. That's what we're gonna do. Scavenge! Kyle quickly crouched down on the floor, realizing his immediate need for elves. Kyle winced as he realized he would probably need to bring some elves along. Kyle grabbed a nearby bag. He started to crawl around, furiously grabbing elves left and right. Soon, Kyle's bag was mostly full of elves. No matter! Kyle used his elbow to forcefully compress the bag's contents so he could fit more elves. After several shoves, the contents of the bag had been compressed severely. Kyle continued to gather elves. Soon, the bag was a solid mass of elf flesh. Now we go to the street. Kyle returned to the center of the bedroom. Exit to bedroom hallway. Leave apartment. Kyle walked out into the middle of the road and took a long, pondering look around him. Kyle realized it was wise to conduct his duties as Santa. Release elves upon the world! Kyle dumped his bag of elves on the ground. The elves silently looked around them, stunned by the sudden change in environment. The silence did not last for long. The elves began tearing about, screaming Christmas carols and looking for food. Ravenously, they devoured every crumb, every piece of trash, every bit of roadkill they could find on Kyle's street. It was not nearly enough to satisfy them. They began to branch out to nearby streets. The elves could not be satiated. They began to swipe food out of the hands of nearby restaurant goers. Like a flood, the elves took over Kyle's city. Houses were broken into. Streets were blocked. Within minutes, there wasn't a scrap of food left in the city. Driven by a hunger lust, the elves started gnawing their way through the walls, devouring buildings from the top down. The government's defense measures were brought in to attempt to stop the wave of elves. In a flurry of rage, the elves launched themselves directly towards their enemy. There was a grand clash of bullets and teeth. The elves clamped themselves firmly onto the army members. Hunks of metal and bulletproof jackets were torn asunder by the elf mouths. The army's equipment and weapons. That's a typo. The army's equipment and elves of weapons were systematically swallowed. There was nothing left to stop the elves from consuming every last material from the earth. Nothing except Kyle himself. Kyle planted himself in front of the elf mob menacingly. The elves launched themselves into the air, flying at Kyle teeth first and screaming Christmas cheer. How do you scream Christmas cheer? With cat-like speed, he started grabbing elves out of the air and shoving them in his mouth. Kyle swallowed elves at a frightening pace. He grabbed them with both hands from his legs as they tried to climb up. Kyle's stomach began to bulge with elf mass, but he did not slow down. As suddenly as it had started, the flurry of elves ended. Kyle had swallowed them all. Kyle became a national icon of Homeland Defense. The world began to refer to Kyle among the great history figures of humanity. Kyle was preemptively awarded the next 2 Nobel Peace Prizes. His name became synonymous with safety and joy. Kyle spent the next few days hunched over the toilet, hacking elves out one by one and flushing them into the sewer. The elves formed an underground society in the belly of the city, living happily in peace away from humanity. Kyle released the elves. Oh man. Let's try to give the kids a bottle of lard. That's something we haven't tried yet. Kyle called for the families to gather around him. The children bounced over expectantly. Kyle presented the children with a gift. "Here, kids," said Kyle. "Enjoy!" Kyle produced the bottle of lard, snapped the neck off, and poured it over the children and their parents. The group stood shocked and confused. Kyle threw his arms out wide in celebration. "Merry Christmas!" he shouted. Kyle laughed from the bottom of his stomach. Ho, 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 ho. Suddenly, with a crack, all of the children pointed at Kyle, mouths hanging open with glowing red eyes. They began to walk towards Kyle, together, continuing to point and murmuring softly. Kyle suddenly realized he was in a sticky situation. Kyle turned to flee, but was stopped by an incoming mob of children walking towards him from behind. Kyle did not know, but he had triggered an ancient evil that lay beneath his town. What? Without anywhere to turn, Kyle began to dig downwards with both hands. Big downwards. Kyle began to dig downwards with both hands. Kyle began to dig downwards with his hands. Impressively, Kyle managed to outrun the ancient evil around him and burrowed deep into the earth. Without many other options, Kyle stayed put and waited for the ancient evil to go away from the city. That time did not come. The ancient evil took over the populace of Kyle's town, turning Kyle's city into a mass of glowing eyes and danger. Many supernatural investigators tried to find the root of the city's problems but failed. Roads leading to the city were eventually blocked, leaving it as a banned evil place surrounded by normal America. Kyle expanded his underground home to a series of tunnels running underneath the city. He survived by popping out into the various buildings and swiping their leftover canned goods from pantries and shelves. Kyle had changed his city forever. Kyle gifted lard. What? That is not... Well, everybody, this has been Kyle is Famous. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. We have 5 more endings. If you want to see the last of that, hit that subscribe button. If you enjoyed this and laughed along with me, hit that like button. If you have any comments, suggestions, tips on how to get the last endings, hit that in the comment section below. Let me know. And if you share this video, any and all of that would make my heart go, Merry Christmas. And as always, have an amazing rest of your day. Here's your heart and your blink. Bye.
It was the mother elf! Laser Claymore! Kids sure will be kids! Kyle gifted a Claymore. Very nice. Release elves upon the world! He's gonna get the cheer! Kyle threw his arms out wide in celebration.